I mean, he's really well handled by Arne Slot.
Yeah,
first, I have
well.
to commend him by the way he's answered that. That is exactly how you answer to the media when, you know, a player of Mo Salah's magnitude says what he said. Is Mo Salah wrong for acting this way?
No. I honestly don't get what the big problem is with him speaking to the press. I get that you said earlier that it's probably only the second or third time he's ever entered into the mix zone after a game and had a conversation. He's had that conversation because he obviously feels like he has stuff he wants to get off his chest and stuff he wants to speak about. And why shouldn't he speak about it? Because there's a lot of stuff written about him every week in this contract situation. There's a lot of people talking about it every week. Whatever Salah says or doesn't say, Arne Slot's still going to be asked about it in every Liverpool press conference because it's huge, huge news that, in my opinion, the best Liverpool player in the Premier League era could leave for a free at the end of the season. He clearly wants to stay. You know, some of the language he's used has been criticised, saying he's more out than in. But I think Salah's just speaking in facts. That the longer time goes on,
and he doesn't,
the closer it comes to his contract ending, of course, naturally, he then becomes more out than he does in. But I didn't take away from what Salah's saying that he's saying, I want to be more out than in. Everything he said there tells me he wants to stay.
Yeah, but I do think what he's doing is basically he's coming out publicly and saying this is on the club why I haven't signed yet. But it is a two-way thing. Yeah, he hasn't had an offer yet.
He can't sign an offer if there isn't one.
No, but also you can't sign an offer if you both haven't agreed. So it's a two-way thing.
Isn't he saying he hasn't received an offer?
He says it. No, yeah, but I'm talking about the discussions. So like Jamie Carragher was saying, like, there will be discussions about this new deal. It's whether they haven't managed to come to terms on the longevity of the contract or the valuation of the contract, which is that, listen, this is a really important contract for Mo Salah to sign. He's entitled and has earned the right to take as much time as he needs. But I think by coming out and speaking about it, not unprovoked, but in a mix zone when you don't have to, no disrespect to the publication who did get that, but it's very.
Who was it?
I don't know, but what I'm saying is that it wasn't sort of the Guardian, and it was NBC, right? So it wasn't like a sit down interview to address it. It was pretty much off the cuff, and it felt like Mo Salah decided that actually today I'm just going to speak about it, and that's his right to do that.
Because he just won them another football match in the top of the league.
And I think that's where Arne Slot's right, because for him as the coach, like he said, he's more in than out in my selection. He's scoring loads of goals. I've not seen this be a problem in and amongst the ranks of the players. We're top of the league, we're winning games, we're scoring goals. But by Mo Salah doing that, it does allow people to have bigger opinions, to keep the noise up. But they seem, the one thing I will give Liverpool a massive tick for is they seem strong enough to deal with that. And there's not been any evidence recently with Trent, with Van Dijk or Mo Salah that any of this contract situation is getting to them. You know, Trent said he wants to win the Ballon d'Or, so then we were going, is it, maybe he might want to leave, maybe he can't win the Ballon d'Or.
So what's the difference in Salah coming out and saying what he said than Trent Alexander-Arnold saying, I want to win the Ballon d'Or, winning trophies is the most important thing?
I think it's only because he went into more detail, which is his right to, but it might rub some people up the wrong way, because he's basically saying, I'm disappointed I don't have an offer yet, but also, you know, it is a little bit selfish because you're basically, in that moment, Jamie Carragher's argument is that in that moment, you're not thinking about the team, you're thinking about yourself. But I do push back to Jamie Carragher, because I'm like,
I do too.
He's allowed to think about himself. He's still giving you everything. If his form was bad, his head wasn't there, you can tell he's a shadow of himself. That's a different story. But last time I checked, Mo Salah's still Mo Salah, mate.
It's not like do you remember when Lukaku came out and gave that interview in Italy and he said what he said and got fined because it wasn't okayed by Chelsea? Mo Salah's got every right to go into the mix zone and speak about his situation. As I said earlier, people are going to talk about it anyway. And even though he's just come out and said that, I don't think anything's massively changed. I don't think it's going to affect what Liverpool do on the pitch. Those three players have been so professional all season, and on the main
he's
part,
not going to have a stinker against Real Madrid now.
All three of them have excelled this season as well. Mo Salah I didn't take it that he criticised the club. He actually did the opposite. He was almost saying, I love this club, I want to stay, I love the fans love me. He hasn't come out and slagged anyone off. He's just come out and said that he wants to stay, which is his right, because people are going to be talking about it anyway. If he hadn't come out and done that interview, Arne Slot is still going to be asked in that press conference ahead of this game, what's going on with Mo Salah, what's going on with Van Dijk, what's going on with Trent Alexander-Arnold.
But is it easier for him to handle?
He's handled it brilliantly.
Oh, absolutely. But
it's actually given a bit of clarity to the situation, and it probably helps Slot.
The only thing it's done for Slot is give him a little bit more work to do, really, because every single week when they ask it, it's easy for Slot to say, nothing to do with me between the club and the player. But because Mo Salah has cut which is true, and that's the right thing to keep saying. And usually when there hasn't been a little bit of news for a while, maybe some people stop asking for a little bit before it rears its neck again, right? Rears its head again. But what Mo Salah saying that has done is given Arne Slot just more to answer for, which he's answered fantastically well, by the way, because he's got the skill set and the communication skills to do it. I think he absolutely nailed that response, really. And he's basically saying, look, in my opinion, I think he's saying, I'm new in here. Mo Salah is a legend of the game, a legend of Liverpool, and it's between the club and him. For me, I see him training as hard as he ever has. I'm seeing him putting up the numbers that he always does. He's always going to start for me. It's not really, I can't really say anything more of that. It's fine. Like,
the Liverpool fans are going to have a problem with that interview. As much chat has come off Liverpool fans doing that banner than it would have done off the back of this interview. Pay Mo his dough. You know, the press are talking about that and his contract.
Do you think Liverpool fans?
I don't think they care what's just happened.
Do you think Liverpool fans will disagree with what Jamie Carragher says then? Because, you know, Liverpool legend.
I haven't looked.
He went on to say that, you know, when they had to move on from Steven Gerrard, when they had to move on from Luis Suarez, with Dalglish, Rush, Fowler, etc., etc. He says if Mo Salah leaves, Liverpool will move on because he's been there and done it. But when he says he's selfish, do you think Liverpool fans would be like, we don't really agree with Jamie there?
I honestly don't think it's selfish to come out and address your own future. He's got every right to do that as a player who is spoken about all the time and is written about all the time. I don't understand why it's such a big deal for a player to come out and almost just offer his point of view, because fans want to know what players are thinking, and now they know what Mo Salah is thinking. So I think it's created a bit more clarity, if anything, around the situation. Yeah,
because he's chosen to speak about it from the horse's mouth and not hearsay and rumours. Just back to the player though.
Unbelievable.
He's 32 years of age, another couple of goals. Wasn't playing all that well before he got the first goal, which McCarthy, I have no idea. It's like Southampton tried their best to make sure Mo Salah scored, honestly, but it's 2 goals. How do you look at him in terms of how he keeps maturing from here at 32? Do you see him like a Ronaldo and Lewandowski, where deep into his 30s he'll be a top draw player still?
I honestly think if one of the hold-ups with his contract is the duration of the contract. Liverpool gave him a 3-year contract, I think it was last time.
What do you think they should give him now at 32?
I think he wouldn't be demanding more than a 3-year contract. I think Liverpool lose nothing by giving him a 3-year contract.
Yeah, that's about right.
And giving him a little bit of a pay rise, because they're giving the 3-year contract. Whenever they sell him, within that 3 years, they're going to get big money for him. You might not want to sell him in those 3 years, and I still think you're going to get the same kind of productivity that you've got across his whole time at Liverpool anyway. The money from Saudi is going to always be there for the player and for Liverpool should they choose to sell him. So pulling the trigger on a 3-year contract for me for Liverpool is just a no-brainer, because he's still so good.
Yeah, I agree. He's a joy to watch. A lot of talk about him catching up to Thierry Henry and
honestly, one of the greats of the Premier League. Liverpool's best ever Premier League era player.
Yeah,
no doubt for me.
Yeah, a lot of people are still saying Steven Gerrard, but yeah, I think with what Salah's won and the impact, it's difficult to argue.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.